it's now time to go global.
All right, let's check out what's happening in the global economy now. We see the Royal African Society. They marked 125 years of advancing UK-Africa relations together with business leaders, policymakers, and investors at the London Stock Exchange. The milestone event underscored London's role as a gateway for African capital while highlighting new opportunities for trade, investment, and innovation between regions. Take a listen.
Absolutely honored to chair the Royal Africa Society at a time when it's celebrating 125 years of being in existence. But also more important is that some of the issues that we're dealing with today are issues that Mary Kingsley, who has always been a champion of Africa, was talking about in the late 1800s. And this organization was founded in her memory by people from Africa, from the UK, who understood what Africa meant to the rest of the world.
What it aspired to from the aspirations of Mary Kingsley, the founder, was to be a platform to promote mutual respect, commerce, not aid. Cooperation and collaboration with Africa that understands that Africa has its culture, has its own way of governance, and that Africa can thrive on commerce, fair commerce with Britain.
I want us to focus on the future that we have to build. And I think there's a platform here for us to talk about the key challenges we have and to agree apart on how we can intentionally build a future for Africans to have dignity and prosperity. We have to change the way our economies are structured. And we need to do that by intentionally planning for prosperity.
This time around, there's a focus on seeking primary development in Africa, using global capital towards doing that, merging the ideas regarding technology, cooperation, and effectively changing our ethos from one of growth to one of development in the continent. And it resonates with us, and we're very keen to continue to develop the ideas that are being discussed here.
All right, let's get the latest from the UK now with our London Bureau Chief, Juliana Olayinka. And first, Juliana, good morning. We have data out there, and we see UK inflation. That's for June. That's about 2.6% from previous, that's for May, 2.8%. How's this data? How's it been taken over there?
Good morning, Laddie Williams. Look, this is great news in terms of timing, right? It was just a couple of days ago that Andy Burnham walked into number 10 Downing Street declaring that he wanted an economic reset. And of course, he can't take credit for this ONS CPI headline data, but it's good. It's good momentum showing that inflation had fallen to sort of 2.7%, which is the lowest it's been since March 2025, which is quite a while, actually, considering what's happened geopolitically since then. I think the fall has been attributed mostly to transport. I think we've been seeing lower prices at the fuel stations, particularly when it comes to diesel. I think for households, the most important attribution has got to be the fall in food inflation. Food inflation, I believe, fell to about 1.7%, and that's significant, particularly at a time during summer. We know the children at home. I know you know that, Laddie. Children constantly eating. So I think having and seeing that fall in grocery prices is really important. I'm not sure this is going to be enough to move the Bank of England during the next MPC meeting. The Bank of England have a benchmark rate of 2%, Of course, 2.7% is still quite high above that, but we are getting there. Interest rates currently stand at about 3.75% in the UK. I don't think these figures are going to suggest that the BOE MPC are going to cut, but nevertheless, really great optics for the new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham.
Right, I guess we can call June the month of easing, when it comes to inflation there. But on the policy front, we see Burnham is actually looking at slashing business rates on pubs and clubs by about 20%. I guess that's good.
Yeah, that's another great story. I think since lockdown, really, pubs and bars and the owners have been complaining significantly about, their stress and their worries. I think, there's a lot of consumer habits changing in the UK. A lot of younger people, they don't necessarily go to pubs and bars anymore. They're very health conscious. Most of them would prefer to have a sort of matcha latte, than a pint. And so what we've been seeing over the past few years in this country is that there's been significant pub closures. And I don't think the Labour Party have been able to get it right. And so, this is great news. Andy Burnham has said that he is going to be slashing business rates for them by April next year by 20%, which is pretty significant. I believe the Treasury said this is going to cost them about £100 million a year, and it's going to hopefully extend the life of about 32,000 pubs. So, thumbs up all round for the Prime Minister this week. But as you know, Laddie, we're still very much in the honeymoon period. So, we're going to have to just be steady as she goes.
All right, I guess, the pubs, I guess they made a lot of money during the World Cup, even though England didn't get to bring it home at this point. Thank you so much, Juliana.
Thank you, Laddie.
All right, now let's flip over now to see what's happening in other parts, and it's all about earnings. This is on big tech earnings. And we see Alphabet there. They have their Q2 earnings revenue there, actual $119.8 billion, beating the estimates of about $117 billion. Cloud revenue, $24.8 billion. That also beats estimates. Operational income, $40.8 billion. But CapEx, that's the one that got markets riled there. And also the CapEx projection, that's for AI spend, going forward, is going to be higher at this point. And that's why we see the stock did fall yesterday. Let's get a check on other earnings now. Let's look at Tesla. For Tesla, earnings per share, that was about 33 cents. Expected was 51. So that was underperformance right there for earnings per share for Tesla, second quarter of 2026. But for revenue, we had a beat there, $28.24 billion. Expected was about $25.71 billion. So a good one for Tesla. Let's look at BNP Paribas now. That's one of the top banks there in Europe. Net income, 4.35 billion euros for the second quarter. It was a fantastic result all through. Revenue, 14.10 billion euros. Net income growth, that's about 33% higher. Revenue growth, 12% higher. And operating expenses, that was higher by 10% year on year. All right, let's get to other stories now. Right there, let's see what else is happening. We see for South Korea's economy, that expanded faster than expected in the second quarter, powered by a boom in artificial intelligence driven by semiconductor exports. The stronger than forecast growth has reinforced expectations of further interest rate hikes from the Bank of Korea, even as policymakers keep a close watch on slowing domestic demand. Then Hyundai Motors, they reported a weaker second quarter earning there, with operating profit falling 21%, as softer vehicle sales, production disruptions, and rising raw material costs weighed on earnings. Despite the miss, the South Korean automaker is maintaining its full-year outlook, banking on new model launches and higher production in the second half to drive recovery. That's what's hot in the global economy. It's back to you, Annie.